Kate Bell is the head of economics at the TUC. Ryan Shorthouse is a former conservative advisor and founder and CEO of Bright Blue, which describes itself as the independent think tank and pressure group for liberal conservatism. Good evening to you both. Ryan Shorthouse, you tweeted earlier, balancing the books is back, Cameronism returns. Is this another way of saying austerity is back?
Well, I think austerity light is back. I'm not sure that we're going to have the depth of spending cuts that we saw in the post-financial crash 2008 period in the early 2010s. But I do think the government will have to make some spending cuts to continue to calm the markets and to really kind of reduce the size of government borrowing, which is increasing quite rapidly because gilt yields, 10-year gilt yields are rising quite substantially. So they do need to calm the markets and improve investor confidence. And so, yeah.
Kate Bell, do you think that austerity is inevitable? Will it be austerity light? The IFS estimated last week that the fiscal hole was at about $60 billion, but with the market turmoil we've seen and rising government borrowing costs, it rose to almost $70 billion. And, Jeremy Hunt may have filled about half of that, but there's about half left.
Well, I think millions of people listening will have been sympathising with the previous interviewee, George, who was saying, he can't, he's worried about his wages, he's worried about his cost of living, and now he's going to be worried about the public services that he and we all rely on too. And I don't think we can concede to the argument that austerity is now inevitable. We didn't need to be in the mess we're in now, and we do need a totally different approach. We know that the austerity we experienced over the last decade is one of the reasons we're in this mess, that slow growth, that decimation of our public services. We can't go back to that approach.
But you say we can't go back to that approach, but we've seen the market turmoil of the last few weeks. What's the alternative?
Well, we have seen the market turmoil, and of course, that uncertainty, that lack of transparency, that lack of a clear plan for growth other than handing out money to rich people.
Well, concern about really unfunded tax cuts. So where are you supposed to magic the money from?
Well, of course, there are the ways that government can raise money. There's tax rises. I think we've been putting forward plans for taxes on capital gains tax to come in line with income tax, basically, taxing the wealthy. And of course, there's money available from those windfall taxes, which we still haven't seen imposed in full on the oil and gas giants, who, of course, are still profiting from the crisis that, all of us are experiencing across the country now. I think the idea that working people and the public services they rely on are going to be asked to get out of this mess just isn't acceptable, and government is going to have to come up with another approach.
Ryan Shorthouse, the Chancellor, said today there are difficult decisions ahead. Given the scale of the savings that might need to be made and the fact that this isn't 2010, the cuts have already been made once, there's much less fat to trim than there was then. Should the government be considering alternatives, tax rises, more tax rises?
Well, I agree with Kate that actually a large part of why we're in the very difficult position we're in now is as a result of that mini budget that Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng implemented. And the markets reacted very badly to that. There's obviously other global pressures going on, but it's no doubt that the mini budget worsened things. So, spending cuts that we're talking about now were not really on the cards pre-September. So the Tories will be blamed for this. And of course, we're seeing rising mortgage rates as well. The very people that are most likely to vote Tory, especially in those red wall seats, will now see their mortgages really substantially increase. And won't forget the Tories, what they did in the mini budget. But what I would say is there is no alternative now to some tax increases. I agree with Kate. We should have that. It shouldn't be disproportionately on spending cuts. But I'm afraid that really to close the deficit, and we do need to do that because we do need to increase market confidence. If not, people will not invest in Britain. We won't have the money to fund public services. So we will have to have some spending cuts. And I think there are.
But many people will think back to Boris Johnson just, a few months ago, talking about sunny uplands and a positive time, the end of austerity. Yes, COVID perhaps changed some of the parameters, but there was still a very positive message coming from the government. Did this mini budget, is that the cause of all of the problems?
It's not the cause of all of the problems. Like I say, I think there's issues around China being locked down as a result of COVID, the war in Eastern Europe, that is clogging up supply chains, which is increasing inflation. And of course, in America, there's been a quite sharp rise in interest rates, which has made the dollar quite strong. So there's lots of global pressures, which is worsening Britain's economic problems. But there is no doubt that the unfunded tax cuts which were announced, which, yes, Kate is right, disproportionately affected the wealthy, have made things worse. And so we've moved from Trussonomics to Cameronism again. And, that I don't think the Tories are going to win the election as a result.
We shall have to see how it all plays out. Ryan Shorthouse and Kate Bell, thank you both very much.